Hey everyone, David here with your weekly Mouthful of David video, and also the last one for the foreseeable future. Basically, I started this series of videos because I felt like I had some interesting things to say about history, stuff that I wanted to share with all of you, and I feel like I've said about as much as I can think of to say without really just kind of digging for topics and just, really going out of my way to think of stuff. And I don't want to, just be making these videos just for the sake of making them. So for now, this is my 50th and final episode of this. I'll probably do the occasional video if some sort of inspiration comes to mind, if I think of something that I want to say that I haven't said already. But otherwise, this will be it. This isn't going to be it necessarily for solo projects from me for A Mouthful of History, but whatever I do decide to do next will look a little bit different than this. So, I might do a video series coming at all this from a different angle. I might just write more posts for A Mouthful of History. If you haven't seen, we have our Patreon, but I also write posts on Patreon for everyone. You don't need to be a dues paying patron for the Patreon to have access to some of the stuff I've written. So, be on the lookout for other stuff from me, but this will be it for these videos. So for this week, just to close things out, I kind of wanted to reflect a little bit on what history means for me personally, because I've talked about all these different issues and angles and ways to think about history and different things that I personally find interesting. But I guess just to, get a little personal, I think of history and like history because I think it's very relevant to the present. And I know that that's been said so much by people who study history that it's practically a cliche, but what I guess I want to do right now is give a little bit of depth to just, that surface level truism, because I think studying history, whether you study it seriously and it's your major and your career, or even something that you do for fun on the side, something that I've talked about and tried to give resources for people who, are not trying to be historians, but do still want to learn and think historically. Whatever your level is in relation to history, I think history can act as a sort of lantern in trying to think about how humans can move forward as a species and within our own, societies and everything, because it shows us what's possible, it shows us what has and hasn't been done before, it shows us different theories and ideas of how the world works, of how humans work, of how politics works. And I think there's something very enriching about studying all of that. As much as I love a good story, I love movies, I love books and everything, I wouldn't really be that into history if it really was just the past. Studying how people have dealt with issues in the past can help illuminate things today. And I know I've said this to different extents in a couple of videos, but just to kind of bring it all together, I think that studying history really is just so important also next to different people who have studied different fields basically. I don't think history is the ultimate guide to enlightenment or having all the answers, or figuring out what to do next for our own society or humanity in general. I think people who have different levels of understandings of different things kind of need to put their heads together, because it's almost like ultimately all of us as individual people and even individual cultures in the world, it's like we have our own flashlight. We're trying to make our way through the dark, and yeah, I even used the lantern analogy before. But I think it's really when we combine all of our lanterns, all of our flashlights, that we really start to see and understand things around us. So, I talk about history but I don't think history is the most important thing you can possibly learn, but it is a very important thing. I think, historians and biologists and sociologists and even, people who are not at all uh, part of or connected to academia, really have to all put their heads together to try to figure things out. I think someone who works as a custodian, someone who works as a child caregiver, which I've worked at in the past and learned a lot from, someone who's worked as a jardinero, a gardener, someone who's worked as just anything, right? I think there's wisdom and knowledge to be gained from everyone, but I think history does play an important role in all of that to give us perspective and to give us, again, understandings of what has and has not been tried before. So history to me is an important but by no means the most important part of the puzzle in just trying to figure everything out. So I really appreciate all of you who have listened. I really appreciate, just all the kind words and support from doing this project, I guess you could call it. And I'll keep you all posted on what I'm doing next for my, solo mouthful of history stuff. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. And yeah.